I never thought peace would come at such a steep price, but looking back, I guess I should have known. After 12 years as an EPA environmental engineer, handling 47 pollution cases, working all those nights collecting water samples with a flashlight and a stomach full of gas station coffee, I really thought I'd seen the worst of human greed. Turns out, nothing prepared me for a war waged with polite emails and weaponized HOA bylaws. You know the type, conflict wrapped in a bow, delivered right to your inbox with a fake smile. I retired early to chase something simple, just wanted to fish by my own lake. 2.4 acres of water, 4 acres of woods and grass, all of it outside the HOA jurisdiction, or so I thought. That's how I ended up in Cedar Ridge, 6 months of real sleep, no more nightmares about benzene plumes or midnight raids on illegal dump sites. Just bullfrogs, the rustle of trees, maybe an owl. But then Diane Keller decided my lake was the perfect place to hide her crimes, and suddenly I was right back in the thick of it, except this time it was my home on the line. It started like this, 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, late April. The low mechanical hum of a pump yanked me out of sleep. One of those sounds that doesn't belong, that makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck. I caught a whiff through my bedroom window, sharp, chemical, the kind of smell you never forget if you've ever walked a contaminated site. Dimethyl sulfide. It's a flavor of dread, let me tell you. 30 seconds later, I'm in jeans and a work jacket, flashlight in hand, hustling down to the water. The moon was nearly full, enough to turn the lawn silver. And as I got closer, that chemical stench hit harder, blended with something petroleum-based. By the time I reached the dock, there was this layer of white foam drifting near the northeast corner, right where my property line met the HOA land, catching the moonlight like cheap soap scum. The second I set foot on the boards, the pump cut off, just like that, as if someone was watching. You ever get that prickling sense that the world just paused to watch what you'll do next? I aimed my light at the HOA side. Nothing. No lights, no movement. Just the squat outline of their waste shed and the empty community center. I crouched and checked out the foam, oily, rainbow swirls, nothing natural about it. Snapped 6 photos, time-stamped and all, checked the weather, 62 degrees, southeast wind. Documentation's everything, even before you know what you're chasing. Sitting there, I realized I'd heard that same pump twice in 3 weeks, always around 2 a.m., always followed by that sharp tang the next morning. I'd blamed irrigation, maybe a generator. Turns out, I was wrong. By 3:30, I was back in the kitchen, scrolling through the Cedar Ridge HOA budget reports. Just your average bureaucratic mess, until I saw it. Waste Management Services. $8,000 in 2022. $31,000 in 2023. The footnote blamed a new recycling program, but there was no breakdown, no vendor names, nothing to explain a 287% increase. I'd seen this pattern before. A plant in Ohio called its illegal dumping fees consulting. Here it was waste management. And the smell, well, chemicals never lie. You want the first rule of environmental crime? When the money doesn't add up and your backyard smells like a Superfund site, follow the stench. By sunrise, I was back at the lake with my field kit. Portable, reliable, and a decade of bad memories attached. The foam was gone, but the smell clung to the water. Ran my tests, TDS pH ammonia. The results were off the charts. Ammonia at 4.2 parts per million, pH at 8.9. Way too alkaline for a spring-fed lake. I tested 3 spots, all the same. Right then, I heard footsteps, my neighbor Tom Beckman, fishing rod in hand, face tight. I've been fishing here 40 years, Nathan. Never seen it like this. 6 dead bluegill on my beach this morning. What's going on? I showed him the readings, and he just stared at the numbers, jaw clenched. That's not fertilizer, is it? Nope, I told him. This was industrial. Something you dump at 2 in the morning, hoping nobody's looking. Tom said his wife had noticed the smell, thought it was septic. I told him I'd document everything, give the HOA a shot to explain before taking it higher. Tom shook his head. You're a better man than me. If someone poisoned my backyard, I'd be over there right now. But anger without evidence just gets you ignored. Patience and documentation, that's how you get justice. Tom agreed to keep an eye out, then walk home, tackle box hanging useless from his hand. I went inside and drafted an email. At 10:30, a reply hit my inbox. Subject: violation notice. My stomach sank. Polite, bureaucratic, but not friendly. Dear Mr. Foster, it's come to our attention you've been fishing at the community lake. Per bylaw 12.3, fishing is strictly prohibited for safety and conservation. Further violation, $150 fine per occurrence. Signed, Diane Keller, HOA President. I read it twice. The lake wasn't community property. It was on my land, fed by my spring, bounded on 3 sides by my survey. Less than 8 hours after I found contamination, they suddenly cared about my fishing? No way that was a coincidence. Someone saw my flashlight. Someone got spooked. I kept my reply calm, laid out the facts, cited the county survey, clarified the property lines, and then, very politely, brought up the elevated ammonia and pH levels. Any changes to HOA waste management? Diane's answer came back in 18 minutes. No changes. Fluctuations are normal. Please consult a local environmental specialist if concerned. Too fast. Too slick. That told me everything. Thursday, the lab results from Aquatech hit my inbox. 8 pages, trichloroethylene at 340 parts per billion, EPA limit. 5, benzene at 89, limit. 5, oil and grease at 1,200. The summary was brutal. Contamination consistent with industrial waste discharge, machinery, lubricants, solvents. Recent, ongoing input suspected. I scanned it all to the cloud, sent copies to myself, and headed for the county recorder's office. An hour of scrolling through digital files, easements, permits, business licenses, until it popped out. Cedar Ridge HOA's letter of intent, February 2024, to sell 8.2 acres of lakefront to Riverside Development Corp. for $2.3 million, contingent on the lake being not suitable for remediation due to naturally occurring contamination. If the lake tested dirty, they sold cheap, Riverside built condos, and everyone walked away happy, except for the people poisoned in the process. And then I saw it. Stuart Keller, 15% stakeholder in Riverside. Diane's husband. Mid-50s, always in deck shoes, waving at the mailbox. Nice enough, unless you count massive financial fraud as a character flaw. I sat in my truck, engine idling, connecting the dots. If the lake stayed clean, the land held its value. If it was contaminated, the HOA sold it cheap, Stewart's company flipped it, and the Kellers made 6 figures on the side. Elegant, simple, criminal. Time for backup. I called Greg Malone, the best environmental attorney I knew. Nathan, I thought you retired, he rasped. I filled him in. His pause told me everything. You've got fraud, trespass, and a Clean Water Act violation. But you need proof of active dumping. Can you get it? I said, yeah. I know exactly how. Proof meant draining the lake completely. No half measures. The source always leaves a mark. Pipes, drums, sediment. If the HOA was pumping chemicals, I'd find the entry point. Next morning, I called the EPA hotline, explained everything. The compliance officer, Jennifer Wu, wanted to know about downstream risk. I promised filtration, no secondary pollution, full documentation. If you find a violation, she said, you're legally obligated to notify us within 24 hours. Roger that. I rented a diesel pump rated for 6,500 gallons a minute, bought an industrial filtration system, mapped 3 discharge points, calculated lake volume, got Tom to fly his drone for video evidence. Greg warned, you're kicking a hornet's nest. I said, hornets can't sting through steel-toed boots. By Sunday, all I had to do was wait for the gear. Sunday afternoon, a white Mercedes rolled into my drive. Diane Keller stepped out, khakis and a pastel blouse, smile like a barbed wire fence. She didn't even ask to come in, just stood on my porch, voice syrupy sweet. Some board members are concerned you're planning something disruptive. Rumors of heavy equipment. I told her I was performing routine maintenance, fully in my rights. She pressed, calling draining the lake extreme. I laid it out. I've got results showing contamination 30 times the safe limit. If you know how that happened, now's the time. She stiffened, then went full threat mode: ecosystem risk, property values, legal liability. You might want to consult your own attorney, I said, because mine's already up to speed. She left in a hurry. Tuesday, the pump arrived. By 9 o'clock, the hose was in the deepest part, the discharge line snaking through carbon filters. Tom showed up, drone in tow, said, "This is either brilliant or nuts." I said, "I've done crazier for less." At 9:45, I fired up the pump. Diesel coughed, water started dropping, an inch every half hour, then steady and relentless. By Wednesday, word got out. Neighbors dropped by, asked about the pump. I showed them the lab reports. Tom's wife turned pale. "We've been swimming in that water." Others wanted to know why the HOA hadn't warned them. I suggested they ask Diane. Thursday, with the lake at 40%, the muddy bottom revealed itself. That's when I saw it. Gray PVC, 4 inches in diameter, protruding from the mud on the HOA border, slow trickle of greenish fluid leaking out. 20 photos later, I was on the phone with Jennifer Wu. EPA rolled in by late afternoon. Hazmat suits, yellow tape, probes tracking the pipe 200 feet back to the HOA waste shed. They found lead, cadmium, all the hits. Jennifer said, "You've nailed a Clean Water Act violation. Criminal investigations opening. Keep this site secure." That's when Diane Keller appeared, saw the caution tape, the EPA agents, and me. Her face was pure hatred. "What have you done? You've destroyed everything." I just crossed my arms. "No, Diane, I drained the lake so everyone could see what you hid." Jennifer stepped in, took Diane's details, told her to lawyer up. Diane tried the just run off excuse, but Jennifer wasn't having it. Rainwater doesn't need industrial pumps set to run at 2 a.m. The community meeting was Saturday, the biggest turnout since I moved in. Over 100 cars packed house. Diane, stiff as a board, tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, but the crowd wanted answers. I stood up and laid out lab results, county records, the Riverside deal, the pipe, the numbers. Greg backed me, attorney at my side, detailing the criminal penalties. Then the twist. One board member stood up, said Diane had lied to the board about the waste management budget. Tom projected drone footage. The whole room saw the pipe, the green fluid, the agents in hazmat. There was no talking around it now. Martin, a neighbor, shouted, "So you poisoned the lake to drop the value so your husband could buy it cheap?" Diane tried to say the lake was already dying, but Greg shut her down. "That's not nature. That's fraud." Officer Ramirez stepped up, escorted Diane out as the room erupted. Half applause, half stunned disbelief. Justice for once was loud. EPA dropped the hammer. $6. $12 million in civil penalties, criminal charges for Diane and Stewart. Board dissolved, restitution paid. Diane got 18 months, Stewart got 2 years, and lost everything. Cleanup started within weeks. Sediment removed, illegal pipe sealed, fresh water refilling my lake. By midsummer, we had new frogs, new fish, new hope. Tom and I fished every weekend, laughing about stubbornness and second chances. The lake healed, and so did I. I didn't want a plaque. I didn't want a parade. Just wanted peace, real, noisy, frog-filled peace. 3 months later, I woke at 2:17 a.m., but this time the only sound was bullfrogs and spring peepers. Nature back where it belonged. A grad student showed up to interview me. Asked if I thought most people would have fought this hard. Probably not, I told her. But sometimes you have to drain a lake just to see what's been buried. So, here's my question for you. What would you have done if your lake was on the line? Would you go to the extreme or trust that someone else would step in? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about justice, about standing your ground when everyone else turns away. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that one stubborn person can make a difference, share your own story. Stand your ground. And remember, the truth's always there, waiting under the surface for someone willing to drain the water and shine a light.